Welcome to B&H Real Exposures, where we interview today's top pros. We ask these rock stars of photography in-depth questions to get insight you won't find anywhere else. I'm David Brommer, your host of Real Exposures, and today we're sitting with the American queen of alternative processing, Jill Enfield. Jill is recognized as one of the world's most experienced and respected hand-coloring artists, as well as a fine art, editorial, and commercial photographer. Jill has taught hand-coloring and non-silver techniques at Parsons, the New School for Design, Fashion Institute of Technology, New York University, Long Island University, and the International Center of Photography in New York, as well as in workshops throughout the United States and Europe, including one of my favorites, Main Media Workshops. In the last several years, Jill has evolved her reputation beyond hand coloring and has become an authority on wet plate collodion process. Jill has just published her second book on alternative process, Jill Enfield's Guide to Photographic Alternative Processes. This latest book is packed with stunning imagery, how-to recipes, techniques, and historical information on the evolution of the process. The book provides the instructions to emulate the ethereal, dreamlike feeling of alternative processing. The book is also close to my heart because Jill chose one of my platinum palladium photographs from the mid-90s to illustrate that technique, as well as a cyanotype that my wife created. Pretty cool, eh? Jill, welcome to Real Exposures. Thanks for coming.
Thank you so much.
How many times can I say alternative processes in one opening introduction?
I think we're done now with that intro.
Well, I also want to say congratulations on the book. I know you've been working on it for quite some time. It's beautiful. I love the book, and thank you for a signed copy of it. How's the reception on the new book going?
It seems to be really going well. We were in Barnes & Noble in Union Square, and it was the end cap. And that was exciting to go up the escalator and see the book right there. So that was cool.
And you were also flanked by two relatively important photographic names, right?
That was pretty nice, too. I was in between Susan Sontag and Annie Leibovitz. Can't go wrong there.
No, that's
So that was nice. And also on Amazon, they tell you not to look too often because it changes, from 1 minute to the next, literally, because I've looked. But it seems to go from book 1 to 6 at the, on the low end for digital printing and equipment and darkroom techniques. So that's pretty nice.
Well, it should.
It's really books.
It's packed with a lot, and it's also it's easy to act as a reference, and I think you can also just kind of sit back and just look through it to be inspired. You have a lot of great photography, your own and other ones you've sourced that are inside the book, so it's pretty comprehensive. Let's talk about the importance of historic processes and its relationship to contemporary photography. And kind of where I wanted to go with this is that you've got this process that's very complicated and it requires a dedication, and then you've got mobile phones and Instagram. Where does it all fit in?
Well, the short answer is that you can combine everything. With my work, I will take, if I like an iPhone picture I took, I'll make it into a digital negative and then make it into another process. So I think that you can combine everything. The long answer is that it really depends on, the modern photographer, what they want to do and how they want to relate the history of photography to what they're doing now, and with with all the digital work that's out there. So it just depends on the photographer and how much they want to learn.
An important piece of equipment, interesting the way you say bridging the gap with the digital negative, but a flatbed scanner and a film scanner kind of becomes important alongside of a contact printing frame and chemistry trays.
Yeah, that's true, but that's an important difference between how people work with alt processes now to how we did it in the 90s, where to make a darkroom negative was much more difficult than it is to make a digital negative. So it's actually easier to combine the 21st century technology with the 19th century processes than it was in the 20th century.
Just for the viewers that might not be so familiar with alternative process, a lot of what happens is you create a digital negative with an inkjet printer, and then you lay that negative down onto an emulsion that you painted on yourself, or you dripped on, or you glass rotted on, and then you make a UV light source or the sun, and that's how you get your print. But I think what's really cool is the fact that when you get done with doing this, you've got something in your hand that's tangible and real.
Well, that's what's so nice with these processes, is it's really tactile. You know, and you go back to the romantic feeling of being in the darkroom and being able to create one-offs and just really have something in your hand, and the smell, the feel, everything.
Yeah, I took your wonderful wet plate collodion class up in Maine last year, and the one thing on the first day when you started passing around examples, holding that tin type. I mean, it's a joy to hold a beautiful piece of fiber paper that you printed your silver print on. That's wonderful. Yeah. But man, holding that little tin type, it had weight to it, it had depth to it, and it just was so, it's just tactile.
The difference for me with these processes is that you do hold everything in your hand. You smell it, you see it. It's a very tactile process. All of them are tactile processes. Every sense, you know, in your head is just woken up from these processes. It's terrific. When I'm on a computer and you're just clicking, it puts me to sleep. It's not as exciting. It's not as romantic. I like the smells. I like being able to touch everything. What turned me on about working with these papers is that I could go to the art store and touch everything and pick which papers felt the best to me. So for me, the romance of photography is the analog world. You know, but don't get me wrong. I mean, like you said, I mean, there's a place for digital, and in fact, the digital negative has made life easier for us. A huge difference between that and making negatives in the darkroom.
It's interesting what you said about the five senses, because you use a lavender varnish on your wet plates. And that lavender, that smell, aside from when you create it, it's very evident. But even later on, when you open up a box to review your work, and that smell still comes out at you, the weight of the plate, the texture of the paper you're using, the way that it looks. Is there any way to taste a photograph?
That I wouldn't want to do. But it is, you're right, it's almost a shame to frame these objects. They're objects. And they really are wonderful to always be able to experience. I love it.
Oh, I like that as an object, it's a print, but it's an object as well.
Yeah.
And that definitely, I mean, we could say all the great things about digital that you want, but when you view an Instagram on a computer screen, it's not an object.
It's not.
Although I like holding my iPad though. Also, a lot of Real Exposures viewers may not really be so well acquainted with alternative processes like this. Aside from your book, where else do you recommend is a good place to start, and what process is a good one to start with?
That's a good question. Well, my book, of course, is the first place they should start, but then workshops, and you mentioned Maine Media Workshop, and the workshops are just fantastic. And also there's a lot of us out there, you know, including myself, that will do private lessons for just a few days if you don't have a full week, although I think it's better to have the week that you can just immerse yourself into photo camp and really enjoy and learn at the same time, and learn from the other students. I think that's so important.
Yeah.
It's just not learning from people that, you know, are experts or have done it. It's having that conversation with other students, I think, is really beneficial.
It's like a mini community that you get to engage in during your workshop.
Yeah.
And you find inspiration from them too. You pick up on the enthusiasm.
Yeah, it's wonderful. It's a wonderful experience.
If one were to watch this interview and to take your book, these processes, they range from fairly simple to more complicated. Which one do you recommend is a good starting point to work with?
Cyanotype seems to be like the all-purpose easiest thing to do. It's two chemicals. You mix them together 1-to-1. You put it down on paper with a brush, or soak it, or glass rod. You know, however you're going to get it down on your paper, and it can be a simple brush from a paint store. It's not anything fancy, and you put it in between two pieces of glass or a contact print frame. You know, you can start very low tech and then add equipment as you go. You can put it in your window or out in the sun, or you can have a UV box, and then you wash it with water. And then you can tone it with things that are in your house. You can tone it with hydrogen peroxide, or with coffee, tea, bark, you know, anything. So it's a very simple, cheap way to start.
Is it sort of the gateway drug into alternative processing?
I
Once
think it is.
You make a good cyanotype, and then
you can
you're
go
hungry
from there.
for amber types and move into.
Yeah, because it is one of the processes that does not have the, you know, the best detail ever. You know, I mean, it has good enough detail. It's great. I mean, I love cyanotypes, but you can then go on to calotypes and platinum palladium prints that have really beautiful, you know, more detail. It has larger tonal range. And so it's just an easy way to start, because it's cheap, because it's easy, and it'll get you used to coating your own paper.
Okay. So, Jill, you teach at some of the best photo schools out there. One trend is the analog darkroom in many schools is going the way of the dodo bird. They're replacing these analog darkrooms with digital darkrooms. So they're ripping out sinks and they're putting in Epson printers. There's a whole generation of photographers now that grew up on digital cameras. They didn't have the experience of a manual film camera, which kind of, remember the Pentax K1000?
Oh, the best.
Those simple manual cameras.
They were the best.
They've been taken out of the classroom. How is this affecting photography on this new generation?
It seems to me, because I am teaching freshmen at, you know, at different semesters, and it seems that they don't know the language of photography. They don't know the history of photography coming into school. And so it makes a difference as to what they understand is happening. The digital cameras, the light meters are perfect now. You don't have to really know the zone system. If you're at the beach or on a snow-capped mountain, how would you change your light to make sure that it stays white instead of gray, where that was very important for us to know in the past. Now they just, you know, put it on snow-capped mountain and, you know, push the button. And it really, it's interesting, because we've almost gone back where it's Kodak's famous sentence, you know, you push the button and we do the rest. And it really is like that. They don't need to understand what's going on unless they want to be more efficient. And I think that that's where you get the difference between maybe a pro and an advanced amateur or an amateur, because I think that it's very important for anybody, for painters, for printmakers, photographers, of course, to know the history of where things came from. Like, these kids don't understand that burn and dodge came from the darkroom. They just think it's a Photoshop term. And that slows them down, because they don't understand what it means, because they don't have that vocabulary.
It's just, you're getting these freshmen and this lack of photo education. And I think back to the way that my school was. We had no darkroom in the art department. We didn't learn photography in the art class. My introduction to photography was with the yearbook. I joined the yearbook club.
Mine too.
But now the yearbook club, there's no more darkrooms. That's all being laid out and InDesign and then sent off. So it's not, we're not getting that aspect of it. And I think also you learn a lot when you fail in the darkroom. And what a great place to fail in.
It's wonderful. I mean, do you remember, you know, the smell of the darkroom? And I mean, I remember just having the radio on and dancing while I'm, you know, at the sink. And it helped with the rhythm of the agitation, and it was fun. I was exercising. You know, it was fun, and it was exciting and romantic. And I mean, it was magic to see that image come up. It's magic.
I've heard a few schools now, they're changing the curriculum where they do, you're introduced to digital, and then at the end of your program, you're introduced to the darkroom. Does that sound counter? Is that?
I don't know. I mean, they keep switching it at Parsons, and actually this semester, the freshmen are able to take an alternative photography class, which I think is terrific, because I will do it as a history lesson as well. And I think that will open up their world. And it doesn't mean that they'll necessarily be doing it all through their 4 years or when they get out, but it might. I think it will inspire them. And I think that it will make it easier for them to then move on, and because it will explain to them, they'll see the image coming up in the sun so that they can understand what's happening with that latent image. And I think that it will teach them better.
Will help them out a little bit. Do you think there's opportunities for professional digital photographers to utilize historic process in their commercial work? The thought that comes right to mind is a wedding photographer who now it's very common for them to take 3,000 exposures, just blazing away, filling up memory cards. Right. But a wedding portrait photographer to deliver something different, and in this case, choose a process.
I think that it's definitely a reality to do. Well, I went to Italy and I shot a wedding in collodion. Now they had a wedding photographer there that shot normal, digital.
Traditional.
And but I shot collodion, and I also shot with a Holga, and also with a lens baby on my digital. So I was doing the alt process wedding, and then she was doing the normal wedding. And it made a big difference to the couple, where they then just looked at these images, and they used them for their thank you cards. They used one to send to the villa where the wedding was. So it's something special that they can do. And there are tintype studios that are opening up all over the country. It's very interesting, and people are willing to. They used to be the cheap way for people to get images, because before that it was a painting, but now people are willing to pay for something that's a little bit different. And Carrie from Main Media Workshop she just did a wedding last weekend. She had a tintype studio at the wedding.
And how many? It's a difficult and slow process. How many images do you deliver to the couple?
I don't give them a number, because it depends on what's happening. If you have to do tests, if the weather's bad, but I can always make a digital negative and then make a collodion in the darkroom.
Okay.
So you can cheat a little bit even with alt processes. But there are, I don't know if you saw, but during the inauguration, David Burnett was there with his large format camera, and with, again, a Holga and a speed graphic, and Jerry Spagnoli did a daguerreotype, and there's 2 photographers with National Geo that have shot tintypes, Rob Kendrick and Richard Barnes. Fred Conrad at the New York Times shoots with all different cameras and techniques. I think that people are very interested in it. And I think that there is definitely room for it. People can get sick of just color images, or all the apps that are on your iPhone. Even there's a tintype app. And if you do a tintype app, but it always looks the same, because, you have the 6 possibilities.
I remember we hung out a couple of years ago, and you very proudly whipped out your iPhone and used a Polaroid app where you shook you were so happy shaking your phone to make the image, the latent image come up. But that's process. That's not just hitting the button and looking at the image. You felt connected to the image because you were You were
because I got
shaking
to
it.
shake it.
The song, isn't it? Shake it like a Polaroid. Isn't
Yes,
that
there is a song like that.
That's super cool. So you got the book out. You've been teaching. You were teaching in Norway. You just came back from main media workshops and taught. And you, September is right around the corner, so we got school starting again. But what's next for you?
Well, first I go to Penland, and I teach a 2-week workshop there, and that's in North Carolina. So that'll be fun. Penland. It's a there are these craft schools that have photography, sculpture, printmaking, painting, drawing, everything. Each discipline has a little cabin, and everything is going on at once. So that's really exciting. But other than that, in September when I get back, I have to start putting together a show for Ellis Island. And that will be wonderful. You know, Ellis Island was supposed to open with a new exhibit in May called The New Immigrants. And that's the name of a body of work that I'm working on, which is New Immigrants. But then with Hurricane Sandy, pushed it back quite a bit. And
How long have you been working on the Immigrant Project?
Since about 2008.
Wow.
On and off.
How many subjects have you worked with so far?
I've worked with probably over 100. There will be 35 in the show, and then I'm working with 2 writers, Mary Panzer and Raven Diltz, who will, when people come to have their picture taken, they fill out a form, a questionnaire. But now Mary and Raven will go back and fill in the blanks and interview them live.
And this exhibition will be on Ellis Island.
It'll be on Ellis Island for about 3 months, and in fact, we're going to have little, almost shadow boxes. It's in the main. There's a huge main room where people went in for processing, and then upstairs is where the dorms were. And there are these little rooms that were the bathrooms, but now they have a doorway and they're open. And within that doorway, I'll have a darkroom set up. So people can actually see how the images were made. And then we'll have a camera set up so that they can look in and see what it looks like in a large format camera.
Fascinating.
Yeah, and then they'll have the real plates.
Wow, congratulations.
Yeah, thank you.
That's wonderful. It's a wonderful
so that's
contribution
exciting.
to photography and American history as well.
Yeah, I hope so. I hope so.
All right, well, listen, I want to thank you for coming here to Real Exposures. It's been great to have you. We're going to you're going to come and do a class this afternoon, and we're going to record that as well, so we'll be able to have our interview and also your class. And you know, I just want to say for everyone out there, the book is really wonderful. We do, of course, sell it here at B&H Photo, but. You know, I want to say from my heart, I highly recommend if you're very enthusiastic for photography and you're looking to reinvigorate your photography and where you're going with it and where it's taking you, this is a wonderful place to start. Check out the book, pick a process. Jill recommends the Cyanotype as the easy process to get involved. And if you say, you know what, I'm a digital photographer and I want to kind of bring it together, you can use the digital negative to bridge that gap. And there's a section on here on creating digital negatives. Yep. And we do sell Pictorico paper here, so you can create all you need is an inkjet printer and some of this paper and play around with this process. And if you lack a light source, a sunny day.
Sunny day.
How amazing is that?
It could even be a cloudy day, actually.
That's right. Add another couple of minutes onto
Right.
the exposure. Perfect. Well, thank you very much for joining us here on Real Exposures, and we hope to see you next time.
Whether you're a hobbyist or a professional, B&H has the answers to your questions. Experience a world of technology at our New York City Superstore. Connect with us online or give us a call. Our staff of experts is happy to help.